This Father's Day at Lowe's, score free gifts for the greatest dad. Right now, get a free Blackstone 8-piece accessory kit when you buy a Blackstone 28-inch griddle. Plus, get 2 free select Craftsman V20 tools when you buy an RP brushless drill and impact driver combo kit. Shop these deals and more this Father's Day at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid through 6/15 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Career changers, including veterans and active duty service members. Your transition starts here. Go from GI to IT in a matter of months. Become a certified cyber warrior with training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, offering IT pros great opportunities and a rewarding lifestyle while protecting our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. Deploy your career in IT today. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify.
This is SpaceTime Series 28, Episode 68, for broadcast on the 6th of June 2025. Coming up on SpaceTime, confirmation of modified Newtonian dynamics is a viable alternative to dark matter. A new study shows the Earth's core contains vast hidden gold reserves. And looking for the chemistry of life on the Saturnian moon Titan. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
A new study has provided more evidence that the hypothesis of modified Newtonian dynamics, or MOND, could provide a plausible alternative to dark matter. Dark matter is one of the biggest mysteries in science today. It's a mysterious invisible substance which only interacts gravitationally with ordinary so-called baryonic matter, providing the additional mass needed to, for example, stop galaxies from flinging apart as they revolve. And there's a lot of it, making up over 85% of all the matter in the universe. And that's disturbing for science, because it means less than 15% of the universe is made up of the stuff we know, the normal baryonic matter, the stuff stars, planets, houses, trees, cars, cats, and people are made of. The problem is scientists have no idea what dark matter is. There are several subatomic candidates for it, but there's no proof. And that's where modified Newtonian dynamics, or MOND, comes in. Now, MOND is a theory that proposes a modified form of Newton's laws to account for the observed properties of galaxies. MOND was developed back in 1982 by Israeli physicist Mordecai Milgrom. Milgrom noted that galaxies' rotational curve data, which seemed to show the galaxies contain more matter than is observed, could also be explained if the gravitational force experienced by a star in the outer regions of a galaxy decays more slowly than what's predicted by Newton's law of gravity. So MOND modifies Newton's laws for extremely small accelerations, which are common in galaxies and galaxy clusters. And this provided a good fit for the rotational curve data, while at the same time leaving the dynamics of, say, our solar system with its strong gravitational field intact. The new research, reported in the Astrophysical Journal, looked at wide binary stars with separations greater than 2,000 astronomical units, which are interesting natural laboratories for allowing a direct probe of gravity at low acceleration weaker than about 1 nanometer per second squared. By the way, an astronomical unit, well, that's the average distance between the Earth and the Sun, about 150 million kilometers or 8.3 light minutes. And that's where the new method comes in. Astrophysicist Ka-Young Shea from Seong University has developed a new method of measuring gravity with all 3 components of the velocities of stars as a major improvement over existing statistical methods which rely on sky-projected 2-dimensional models. The new method derives directly the probability 3-dimensional distribution of gravity between a distant pair of stars in a binary system. Shea says existing methods to infer gravity have the limitation that only the sky-projected velocities are being used. And so they have limitations in accounting for the uncertainties of factors, including stellar masses, to derive the probability distribution of a gravity parameter. This new method overcomes these limitations. Until now, the motions of wide binaries could only be measured in a sort of snapshot method, observed only at a specific phase of orbital motion. That's because of the very long orbital periods of these binaries, which ideally should be observed for the full orbit. And that's where the new method comes in. It requires accurate values for a third velocity component, the line of sight or radial velocity. So only wide binaries with precisely measured radial velocities could be used. Now to test the model, Shea looked at 300 wide binaries with relatively precise radial velocities, which were selected from the European Space Agency's Gaia Database 3 release. Shea found that for wide binaries whose stars orbit each other with an internal acceleration greater than about 10 nanometers per second squared, the inferred gravity is precisely Newtonian. But for an internal acceleration lower than about 1 nanometer per second squared, or a separation greater than about 2,000 astronomical units, the inferred gravity is actually about 40 to 50% stronger than Newton. The significance of this deviation is 4.2 sigma, meaning that standard gravity is outside the 99.997% probability range, and that just happens to match the predictions of MOND. Shea says the findings are encouraging enough for further investigation. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, a new study shows that Earth's core would contain vast amounts of gold reserves, and plans to look for the chemistry of life on Saturn's moon Titan. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. This episode of SpaceTime is brought to you by Insta360, the trailblazers in 360-degree action camera technology. Their latest model, the Insta360 X5, is engineered for extremes. In fact, it's not just an upgrade, it's a whole new level of rugged. With an ultra-tough user-replaceable lens, you can finally take risks with your shots and not worry about the gear. Dust, drops, debris, it's built to survive it all. And if your adventures take you below the surface, well, the X5's IP68 waterproof down to 49 feet right out of the box. No housing, no hassles. And if you want to go deeper, just add the invisible dive case, and you can capture seamless 360-degree footage all the way down to 197 feet underwater. Of course, none of this matters if your footage is shaky. That's why the X5 features flow rate stabilization and full 360-degree horizon lock, giving you silky smooth level shots no matter how intense the motion gets. It's like having a Steadicam built into your camera. Whether you're climbing mountains, diving reefs, or exploring alien worlds, the X5 is ready for anything. To bag a free 114cm invisible selfie stick worth $24.99 US with your Insta360 X5 standard package purchase, head to store.insta360.com and use our special promo code SpaceTime. But remember, you've got to be one of the first 30 standard package purchases. For more information, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. Once again, that's store.insta360.com and use the promo code SpaceTime. And now it's back to our show. A new study has found that Earth's largest gold reserves aren't kept deep inside Fort Knox, but instead lie buried deep under 3,000 kilometres of solid rock. A report in the journal Nature suggests that over 99.999% of Earth's stores of gold and other precious metals are locked away within Earth's metallic core and far beyond the reaches of humans. The findings are based on the discovery of traces of the precious metal ruthenium in volcanic rocks on the islands of Hawaii that were literally blasted out from the Earth's core. Now, compared to Earth's rocky mantle, the metallic core contains a slightly higher abundance of a specific ruthenium isotope, Ru-100. That's because part of the ruthenium, which was locked in the Earth's core together with gold and other precious metals when the planet formed 4.6 billion years ago, came from a different source than the scarce amount contained in the Earth's mantle today. These differences in Ru-100 are so tiny that until now it was impossible to detect them. But a new test has now made it possible to resolve them. The unusually high Ru-100 signal found in lavas on Earth's surface would have ultimately originated from the core mantle boundary region. That's 3,000 kilometres down. The study's authors, Niels Messling and Matthias Wilbold from Göttingen University, say the results confirm that material in the Earth's core, including gold and other precious metals, are leaking into the planet's mantle above. The findings not only showed that the Earth's core isn't as isolated as previously assumed, it also proves that huge volumes of superheated metallic material, several hundreds of quadrillion metric tons of rock, originate from the core mantle boundary and then rise to the surface to form oceanic islands like Hawaii. The authors say these new findings are opening up an entirely new perspective on the evolution of the internal dynamics of our home planet. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, looking for the chemistry of life on the moon Titan. And later in the science report, a new study claims humans may have been making tools from whale bones as far back as 20,000 years ago. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. When it descends through the thick golden haze of Saturn's moon Titan, NASA's Dragonfly rotorcraft will find an eerily similar Earth-like terrain. It'll see dunes wrapping around Titan's equator. There will be clouds drifting across its skies. Rain will be drizzling down to the surface, forming rivers which flow into canyons, streaming into lakes and eventually seas. But not everything is as familiar as it seems. See, at minus 180 degrees Celsius, the sand dunes on Titan aren't silicate grains but organic material. The rivers, lakes and seas aren't water but liquid methane and ethane. On Titan, water is frozen solid, forming bedrock. Titan, you see, is a frigid world laden with organic molecules. Yet Dragonfly, a car-sized rotorcraft set to launch no earlier than 2028, will explore this frigid world to potentially answer one of science's biggest questions: how did life begin? Now, I admit seeking answers about life in a place where it can't likely survive seems strange, but that's precisely the point. Dragonfly principal investigator Z.B. Turtle from the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory in Laurel, Maryland, says Dragonfly isn't a mission to detect life. Instead, it's a mission to investigate the chemistry that came before biology here on Earth. On Titan, scientists can explore the chemical processes that may have led to life on Earth without life complicating the picture. See, on Earth, life has already reshaped everything, burying its chemical forebears deep beneath eons of evolution. Turtle says you need to go from a simple to complex form of chemistry before you can jump across to biology. But science doesn't know all the steps, and Titan will allow researchers to uncover at least some of them. In this way, I guess you can think of Titan as an untouched chemical laboratory where all the ingredients known for life, organics, liquid water and energy, exist and have interacted in the past. What Dragonfly will uncover will illuminate a past long since erased on Earth, and it will refine science's understanding of habitability and whether the chemistry that sparked life on Earth is actually a universal rule or a wondrous cosmic fluke that only happened the once. Before NASA's Cassini-Huygens mission, researchers did know just how rich Titan is in organic molecules. Huygens mission data, combined with laboratory experiments, have revealed a molecular smorgasbord: ethane, propane, acetylene, acetone, vinyl cyanide, benzene. These molecules all fall to the surface, forming thick deposits on Titan's frozen water bedrock. And scientists believe life-related chemistry could have started there if given some liquid water, such as from, say, an asteroid impact. And that's why scientists are looking at a specific location on Titan called Selk Crater, an 80-kilometre wide impact site. It's a key Dragonfly destination, not only because it's covered in organics, but also because it may have once had liquid water for an extended period of time. See, the impact that formed Selk melted the frozen water bedrock, thereby creating a temporary pool of liquid water that could have remained liquid for hundreds of thousands of years under an insulating layer of ice, sort of like winter ponds here on Earth. Now, if a natural antifreeze like ammonia were mixed in, the pool could have remained unfrozen even longer, blending water with organics and the impact of silicon, phosphorus, sulfur and iron to form a primordial soup. For decades now, scientists have simulated Earth's early conditions, mixing water with simple organics to create a sort of prebiotic soup and then jump-starting reactions with an electrical shock. The problem is time. Most of these tests last weeks, maybe a few months or years at most. But the melt pools in Selk Crater could possibly have lasted for tens of thousands of years. Now that's still shorter than the hundreds of millions of years it took for life to emerge on Earth, but potentially it's enough time for critical chemistry to occur. Thing is, we don't know how long it took for Earth life to be created, because conditions had to stabilise and the chemistry itself needed time. But the models show that if you do toss Titan's organics into water, tens of thousands of years should be plenty of time for chemistry to happen. And Dragonfly will test that theory. Landing near Selk, it'll fly from site to site, analysing the surface chemistry to investigate the frozen remains of what could have been prebiotic chemistry in action. Dragonfly will use a mass spectrometer to search for indicators of complex chemistry. For example, on Earth, amino acids, fundamental to proteins, appear in specific patterns. A world without life would mainly manufacture the simplest amino acids and form fewer complex ones. Now, generally, Titan isn't regarded as habitable. It's far too cold for the chemistry of life as we know it to occur. And there's no liquid water on the surface where the organics and likely energy sources exist. Still, scientists are assuming that if a place has life's ingredients and enough time, complex chemistry, eventually even life, could emerge. Now, if Titan proves otherwise, it could mean scientists have misunderstood something about how life began, and that means life would be a lot rarer than what we thought. But of course, they won't know unless they look, and that's where Dragonfly comes in. This report from NASA TV.
Saturn's largest moon, Titan, has a thick atmosphere and a frozen surface rich in organic molecules. In 2034, a NASA mission called Dragonfly will arrive at Titan and study its chemical makeup. Dragonfly is a rotorcraft designed to visit multiple sites across the moon's varied terrain. At each new landing site on Titan's surface, Dragonfly uses a pulsed neutron generator and onboard gamma-ray sensor to detect key elements such as carbon and hydrogen in organic materials or oxygen in water ice. Dragonfly determines if there are well-defined layers of these materials just below the lander. For a closer inspection, Dragonfly uses its drill to generate tailings from Titan's hard, frozen surface. These surface samples can then be ingested through the pneumatic system, carried with Titan air into the chilled sample lines and to the sample collection carousel. One of the carousel sample cups is placed in a pneumatic port. The cup captures the surface material from the cold air stream and transfers it to the chemical laboratory for measurement. Pulses from a laser release large organic molecules from the surface sample for analysis in the mass spectrometer. The mass spectrometer sorts molecules by mass and measures diagnostic fragments that tell Dragonfly the kinds of chemical components that are present in the surface and whether there are molecules of prebiotic interest. For those potential prebiotic samples, a new cup is placed into an oven and heated to release molecules into a gas chromatograph, where they are sorted for size and type before entering the mass spectrometer. This advanced separation of organic components includes isolating molecules with the same formula but different chiral arrangements, or handedness. Having a preference for one-handedness over another is a key biosignature for life on Earth. When the chemical analysis is complete, Dragonfly may choose to take another surface sample or find a new location on Titan to investigate.
This is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with a science report. A new study claims humans may have been making tools from whale bones for at least the last 20,000 years. The findings, reported in the journal Nature Communications, are based on an analysis of 83 bone tools and 90 additional bones excavated from dig sites around Spain. The authors claim that these objects could represent the earliest human use of whale remains. The bones came from at least 5 species of large whales, including sperm whales, fin whales, blue whales, and right or bowhead whales. Interestingly, a chemical analysis of the bones also showed that the feeding habits of the whales were slightly different from those species living today. Scientists have for the first time used a quantum computer to simulate the chemical dynamics of real compounds, which could lead to new drugs and medical treatments. A report in the Journal of the American Chemical Society claims the creation of new drugs or medical treatments are among the greatest promises of quantum computing. The research is a vital step towards modelling more complex molecules and designing bespoke chemicals that could lead to improved sunscreen or skin cancer treatments. A new study has found that biodiversity in Antarctic soils may be much greater than previously thought. The authors used DNA sequencing to measure biodiversity in some of the driest, coldest and most nutrient-poor soils, weathered debris in front of a glacier in Antarctica. They found a range of previously unsuspected interactions between different organisms, and these results imply that new mutually beneficial relationships play an essential role in shaping this system. A report in the journal Frontiers in Microbiology claims the findings indicate biodiversity in Antarctica is far greater than previously thought. One of the most famous sea battles of the Second World War was the Battle of the Denmark Strait, which occurred on the 24th of May 1941. It involved the British Royal Navy battleship HMS Prince of Wales and the battle cruiser HMS Hood. They fought the Nazi Kriegsmarine battleship Bismarck and the heavy cruiser Prince Eugens as they were attempting to break out of the North Atlantic between Greenland and Iceland in order to launch attacks on Allied merchant shipping. At the time, the Hood was celebrated as one of Britain's greatest all-time warships, a floating recruitment poster exemplifying the might of the Royal Navy. In fact, it had travelled the world, showing how Britannia ruled the seas. Yet, less than half an hour after intercepting and engaging Bismarck, the Great Hood was sunk, going down in just 3 minutes with 1,415 crew on board, only 3 of which survived. It was a massive blow to English pride at a time of war and a huge propaganda boost for the Nazis. And this is where this story gets interesting. It's claimed the news of the sinking of the Hood was broken not by official channels, but by a Scottish medium, Helen Duncan, who was promptly arrested and charged with, of all things, witchcraft in order to keep her quiet. And as Tim Mendham from Australian Skeptics explains, that brought her to the attention of no one less than Prime Minister Winston Churchill. And that resulted in the media beating up the story of Winnie and Britain's last witch.
Apparently, Winston Churchill, who was Prime Minister of Britain during the Second World War, wrote a memo to the courts here asking about why they were harassing a particular lady who was classed as a witch. Her name was Helen Duncan. She was born in the late 1800s, and she'd been around doing spiritual meetings, seances, that sort of stuff, calling up the dead. And during the war, she happened to mention to someone from the Admiralty about a ship sinking. Now, the details are a bit vague as to how much detail she had, but she said that a ship had just sunk, and that the person from the Admiralty then said, what, phoned up and found out that no one had heard of it yet, but it turned out to be true. Now, like a lot of stories, it might be embroidered a bit, but anyway, they charged her with the Witchcraft Act, sort of designed to keep people like her off the streets, and then Churchill wrote an email saying, what are you doing about this witch? Why are you harassing this witch? Actually, what he was saying about why are you wasting court time on such a stupid little thing, and he called it obsolete tomfoolery during this rather serious period of the Second World War. She was fined. Actually, she was put in prison for a short time. When she got out, she continued practicing for a bit, but not that much longer. The story was that she had a good reputation. Someone was saying that actually the court case gave her a better reputation. It caused a lot more business. Her family, descendants are very much supportive of her. But the story goes, it's pretty much the people who went to see her who were convinced were from a mixture of backgrounds. Some of them pretty ordinary people, some of them in high positions, believed her. Others who had tested her didn't believe her. There was a famous ghost hunter named Henry Price, who was around that time in a lot of famous cases, and he investigated her and he found out that she was, in his point of view, she was a shonk. She was a fake. This is a time when spirituals were...
A case of she was listening to propaganda radio from the Germans, and they boasted that the Bismarck had just sunk the Hood, and she started boasting about that herself, and at that stage the Admiralty hadn't been told that the Hood had been sunk, and they wanted to know how she found out, and there was no actual law they could charge her with, so they dug up this thing from the, 1735, the Witchcraft Act?
That's right, yeah. A pretty old act. It was actually still in place in Australia too for a long time, actually, and I think in one state it was only taken out about 20 years ago. They thought it was a bit silly law. No one had ever been charged under it for a long time. The issue was, where did she get her information from? Maybe she heard it from other sources, German sources or whatever, or maybe someone in the know told her before it became common knowledge. And you often wonder about some of these stories being a bit embroidered as far as the chronology goes, as far as, what's the order of things, how much detail did she give, etc. So this thing about this story that came out recently, Winston Churchill got involved in this court case, so this case against the witch, not really true. He wrote a memo, probably took him about 3 minutes, dictating it to somebody saying, really, don't you have more important things to do? And that was probably it.
That's Tim Mendham from Australian Skeptics. And that's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Acast, Amazon Music, Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favourite podcast download provider, and from spacetimewithstuartgary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.
career changers, including veterans and active duty service members. Your transition starts here. Go from GI to IT in a matter of months. Become a certified cyber warrior with training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, offering IT pros great opportunities and a rewarding lifestyle while protecting our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. Deploy your career in IT today. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify.